Matt Whitaker, former U.S. Acting Attorney General.
This is such a great conversation about America, our future, what's going to save our republic.
We have a great football player. Matt Whitaker is here. Matt.
They tried to bury me. They didn't realize I was a seed.
It's a touchdown. Whitaker.
Former acting U.S. Attorney General.
Under President Trump.
I'm going to be an unwavering supporter of law enforcement.
Welcome to Liberty and Justice with your host, Matt Whitaker.
Today's episode is sponsored by Save Missouri Values PAC. Welcome to Liberty and Justice. I'm your host, Matt Whitaker. I'm very excited to have my good friend, I don't know if she would admit that, my good friend, Senator Joni Ernst from the great state of Iowa with me. Hello, Joni.
Hey, Matt, I will always admit that. You are a great friend and a true patriot. Thank you so much,
and
Matt.
I know most people know this, but you and I were in a primary together in 2014, and one of the promises that I think we all made, but you've had to keep, is the 99 county tour of Iowa. For those of you not from the state of Iowa, Chuck Grassley has made it a tradition to visit all 99 counties and every year. And so Joni and myself both agreed that whoever won, we would continue to do that and follow on Chuck's tradition. And so tell me about your experience. I mean, you're probably on year 8 of doing all 99 counties. What have you learned?
Yes.
What have you seen?
Yeah, Matt, this is it. It was a promise that we made, and it's one that I've been honored to keep. Chuck Grassley really set the bar pretty high, but we do continue that tradition of 99 counties every single year. And I'm in, I've completed 57 for this year, and it is my 8th year of the tour. And I hear all different topics coming from Iowans through the town halls and the visits that I do. But top of mind, of course, for Iowans right now is inflation and the economy. You know, the gas prices at the pump are really hitting Iowans hard, and that affects everyone. It affects the goods and services that we receive with transportation costs, and it's just been very hard on our families and small businesses.
Yeah, and the nice thing by doing that is I think a lot of, especially big state senators and really members of Congress, can sort of ignore their constituency because they're either in a safe seat or a safe district. This, I think, not only forces you, but I think you want to go out and you want to talk to your fellow Iowans, find out what's on their mind, because obviously what's important to the people in Red Oak is not necessarily exactly what's important to the people in Des Moines or Keokuk or, Clarinda or anywhere else in our beautiful state. But what other than inflation, and we're gonna talk about that because I think that is a top issue, and how what we can do to combat that. But what are some other flavors that you hear other than sort of how much people love the Iowa Hawkeyes and and the like?
They love the Iowa State Cyclones more.
I think you're biased on that. But I don't know.
So we do hear all different topics at the town halls. And of course, agriculture really is the heartbeat of Iowa, our small businesses. But with agriculture, we are hearing about the increased costs of inputs like fertilizer, and that's something that is complicated by the war in Ukraine. So we can talk a bit more about that later. But things like even Social Security, we don't hear it in the headlines much anymore, but I do have a number of older Iowans that are really concerned about federal government spending, and if we continue spending at the rate we are, will they ever see their Social Security benefits increased or maybe even decreased? So they get very concerned about those issues. Medicare also goes hand in hand with that, as they get concerned about their health care in older years. But it is a variety of issues, but it's everyday issues that Iowans think about. And we know that other Americans think about it too. Supply chain issues have been hitting our small businesses. I talked to a small cafe owner in Manchester, and things like just getting the to-go soup containers and the lids. that's an issue. It's something that we probably don't think about every day, but there are obstacles that small business owners have. And so, it's all those things that I get from Iowans that are really meaningful.
And it's so important. I think it probably, I'm not a U.S. Senator because you are. I've never said it that way, and I don't think of it that way, but I guess obviously my subconscious thinks that. But you talk about the small business owners and the farmers in Iowa, and I know that I can imagine that the 99 county tour helps you represent them when you're in Washington. You're one of those people that would much rather be in Iowa than Washington, no doubt. Same with me. But I'm sure it helps you do your job, doesn't it?
It does. And just for example, the other day, I was getting onto an elevator at the Capitol building, and I was being chased down by some, DC bubble reporter. And the reporter was asking questions about this and that and the other. And it's nothing that Iowans are asking me about when I'm at home. And so there is this circle around this city called Washington, D.C., that I think a lot of people get concerned about the stuff that goes on here, and they think it's really important. But everyday Iowans, everyday Americans, they're concerned about their issues. They aren't concerned about manufactured crises that exist in Washington, D.C. So I like to focus on the things I'm hearing during my 99 county tour, and the things that Iowans are concerned about, their challenges, and as well, some of them come up with really great solutions that they propose at our town halls or through various discussions. And staying in touch with Iowans, every weekend that Chuck and I are out on the road, and members of our delegation when they're out visiting with Iowans, that stuff matters. We're hearing the real deal from the real people we represent.
Yeah, and they're affected by real issues like inflation. I mean, I know that the recent consumer price index rose at 8.5%. The producer price index, which is the input cost, is even higher, over 10%. And, the retired folks in the state of Iowa are seeing a COLA increase. I think it's 5 or 6%. I can't remember what my dad, who's on Social Security, told me, but it's less than inflation. And so, that's having a dramatic impact in their purchasing power. It's all the income they have, not, a lot of retirees. And so that's a serious issue. Are there solutions to the inflation, and, kind of how poorly has Joe Biden and his administration mismanaged this situation and really stoked the inflation problem?
Yeah, let's start with that last question. How badly? Very badly. Joe Biden and this administration, they really are fanning the flames of inflation, and they are doing that by all of this federal spending that we don't need to do. They continue as a party, the Democratic Party and this administration continue to push the idea that money will solve all of these issues. And it's taxpayer dollars that they are using, and they're pushing out on things that we don't need to do. And the latest and greatest example of that is forgiving student loan debt. And we know that through various studies, most of those people that have student loan debt came from families that could afford to pay for those student loans. Folks like my brother in Montgomery County, Iowa, he went straight into the workforce after high school. He did not have that opportunity to go to school. And so I've used this example with some of my Democratic colleagues that you would forgive student loan debt for people that had the opportunity to go to school and can pay those debts. You're going to transfer that debt onto my brother, who has been working and contributing to our American economy since the day he graduated from high school. He is a blue-collar laborer, and you're going to make him pay somebody else's
And not
debt.
only that.
And fortunately, there are a few of them that say, wow, I hadn't thought
Yeah,
about it.
and over 50% of that student debt is held by people that have master's degrees or higher. So we're talking lawyers,
Yes.
doctors, college professors. It's really an extraordinary, to your point, economic and monetary shift to those that probably need it the least. And it's shocking to me that this is the policy of the left. But do you have any insight as to why they feel so strongly, since it is shifting to blue-collar workers with no college degree and also people with higher diplomas, master's degree, law degrees, medical degrees? Why is the left so adamant about doing this?
Well, I think the left, without actually digging into it, thought that this would be a great opportunity to secure support in the upcoming election. And while if they go through with this, they might secure some support, and maybe people that already support this administration. But what they are going to do is anger those people that are part of the Democratic Party, or more of those in the middle that might be independents, that are going to pay for that small sliver of American society that would have that debt forgiven. And how unfortunate that we are now encouraging, not we as Joni Ernst, because I don't think this is a good policy, but that the administration is encouraging people to sign up for debt, student loans, and then not honor those obligations. You know, I guess as a business owner, if I'm looking at employees, I would want people that will honor their obligations. And I don't wonder if there will be other employers that look at that as well and say, did you pay back your student loan debt, or did you transfer that debt to another hardworking American? That's the way I would look at it. We know when we take out a mortgage, a car loan, we have to pay that debt back. So I think this is an ill-conceived, ill-thought-through plan by the far liberal left.
Yeah, who looks at the world, through their lens. I think of, AOC for just a small example of somebody that, is college educated but decided to, go work as a bartender. And, those are choices, obviously, that each individual makes. And the fact that the government would forgive their educational debt is extraordinary to me. So it sounds like we're on the same page on that, Joni, which I would expect, because you and I are typically aligned on many things. But something that I know it's all I talk about right now when I go on TV, but it's the crisis at the border and the Biden administration's desire to repeal Title 42 authorization. What are you seeing in the Senate right now that gives Americans hope that there's any solution for this, or do we expect just to continue down this path that Biden has set?
Yes, and thank you for being so outspoken. And you do such a fantastic job, not just representing Iowa every time you're on TV, but the fact that you have such a strong conservative
I have my Iowa flag right here behind me.
I love it. Thank you. I love it. So there is hope.
Okay, good.
But honest to goodness, Matt, what I see the administration doing when they lift Title 42, I think they're just going to do it. From what I have seen here in the United States Senate, what gives me hope is that there are 11 Democrats that have really pushed back on the president. Most of them do have tight races this year, and they know that the American public does not agree with the administration on lifting Title 42 and allowing this massive wave of illegal migrants to come into the country unchecked. But they're being affected by the politics and in their states. Some of them are from border states, so they are very concerned. There are some that truly, truly are concerned. about what this is doing to their home states, the communities, the farmers and ranchers, the ability to absorb all of these children coming across the border in the school systems, the effect to the health care that is being provided to, American citizens in those areas. So there is a huge concern out there. So I guess that would be the hope. But the reality is that this administration will go ahead and do whatever the heck they want to do. And what we will see by this administration's own estimates is 18,000 people a day illegally crossing the border. And those are just the ones they can count.
Yeah.
So right now we have about 7,000 a day crossing the border. And the Department of Homeland Security advisor for President Obama, when he spoke up about the crisis at the border during the Trump administration, it was a crisis at 1,000 people, is what he said. I haven't really heard him talk about the 7,000 coming across now, nor the 18,000 we anticipate at the end of this month.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. So my understanding of the March numbers, there were 200,000 encounters, 80,000 people were released. So that means about 120,000 were removed based on Title 42. But, the frustrating thing for me, because the Department of Justice runs the immigration courts, is that, really the policy right now is anybody that makes an asylum claim, which they're trained by their, traffickers to make asylum claims. This is part of the system that, again, we fought against, and, we changed dramatically for the better, and also the Remain in Mexico policy that we put in place. I mean, all these things work together so that you didn't have bogus asylum claims and then people released into the country who, under the law, as you know, are eligible for a green card 6 months after they've applied for what ultimately ends up being bogus asylum claims. I haven't seen the numbers, but it was about 1 in 10, no more than 2 in 10 of those asylum claims were actually ultimately granted by the immigration courts. So you have just, this massive influx of these people that aren't entitled to asylum in the United States under our laws. And, the Biden administration just is kind of waving them through, knowing that the system is so broken. And even though we added over 100 judges in the Trump administration to the immigration courts, the system can't handle it. You just end up with these multi-year wait times. These proceedings keep getting continued because the person's already here in the United States working. They've gotten everything that they want. And ultimately, when their case is adjudicated, oftentimes the evidence is so thin that there's no obvious entitlement to these people that remain in the United States. But it's extraordinary. It's broken. It is a crisis. But, Joe Biden and his administration appears to want to, kind of tell the American people that there's nothing to see there. And I hear, like you do, that this is a huge issue for, whether you're in Iowa, Missouri, or Texas, where they're dramatically impacted.
It is. And Matt, to that point, when you bring up their hearings, many of those that have been given court dates don't show up. Better than 80% of those that illegally cross into the United States don't even show up for their court hearing. They're here. And they're going to stay.
And then they have children here, they get jobs, they become part of the community. And, listen, it's unfortunate not everyone can become a United States citizen because it is an amazing country with tremendous opportunities. There's, as you've heard me speak before, there's only an American dream. There's no German dream or French dream. It is the American dream where you can start with nothing and build a life and, have success on your own terms. And so it's an extraordinary golden ticket, but we just can't have the millions and millions of people that want to come to the United States come completely unchecked, unregulated, and not knowing, who they are, what they want to do. You saw the 42 people on the terrorist watch list that were encountered. The DHS secretary did not give an adequate answer to that. And then on the Sunday shows, trying to clean it up, he said, yeah, we know who they are and where they are. That doesn't give me a lot of comfort.
But they're in the United States. And That's the point, is that we've allowed people to come in and they're not even willing to push out those that are on a terrorist watch list. So that is extremely concerning to me. And I'll give you an example of where else this is broken, because at one of my town halls in South Central Iowa, I had a mother and a father that came to my town hall, and they brought up their daughter that they adopted from Liberia many years ago. And they have not been able to get her into the United States. They have struggled with State Department red tape, trying to get their legally adopted daughter into Iowa, into our schools. And here we have people that are illegally crossing, getting more benefit than someone who has gone through the proper processes here in the United States.
No, you're absolutely right. Any help I can ever give you in this area, I would be happy to, but I am, like you, oftentimes I feel like I'm on the sideline just watching this administration really exercise powers they don't have and not follow the law, and it's very frustrating. I'm sure you're equally frustrated. One topic that I need to see where you're coming from on this, because I think you have such amazing experience in the military and with the military, but like what are you hearing from Ukraine? I know you went to Poland and visited and met a lot of the folks that are directly experiencing this Russian aggression. But tell me kind of the current status, what you think the United States should be doing that we're not, and how the Biden administration can help promote freedom around the world, but especially in Ukraine right now.
Right. And Matt, I get so many questions about this. And by and large, the American people are fully in support of Ukraine with this war. There are some people that are like, hey, why do we need to be involved? And that's where I try and explain that we are obligated by an agreement that the United States entered into in 1994. It's called the Budapest Agreement. Ukraine at that time was the third largest holder of a nuclear arsenal. So, of course, Russia, America, and Ukraine. And with that agreement, Ukraine agreed to get rid of its nuclear arsenal if the United States and other partner nations would defend it from aggression. So we are obligated through that agreement to defend Ukraine. You can, determine what defend means, but in this case, we are providing Ukraine with lethal aid and humanitarian supplies. The other angle that we can use as we're talking about providing assistance to Ukraine is that it truly is a buffer. It is a democratic sovereign nation that buffers the rest of Europe from Russia. Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, wishes to assemble the old Russian era Soviet bloc. And so he is attempting to do that by taking territory that does not belong to him, that does belong to a sovereign nation that democratically elects its leaders. And it is destabilizing Europe, which in turn destabilizes the world order. We really need peace in Europe. It affects our markets. It's affecting our agriculture here in Iowa right now. We see the effect of gas prices. There's just so many things that having this destabilization in civilized nations that really does affect our own economic policy and our markets, but it's also affecting our national security, because Russia is not a friend to the United States, and they are not going to stop at Ukraine. They will continue trying to take other countries in Europe as they continue to reconstitute.
That's an extraordinary statement, and true, that their ambition is not going to stop at the Donbass region or anywhere unless they get Poland and really, the Balkans and all those former satellite states of the USSR under their control. So so what can we do? We're sending arms. I know there's another vote coming up on Capitol Hill to authorize even more support, at least financially, and they could buy weapons to fight this battle. But I mean, where is it an unlimited support, or do we're going to have to at some point in time help them help themselves, and is the world properly engaged, or is the United States bearing this burden alone?
Yes, I think there is so much more that we can be doing, and I'll walk through that. But I will reassure everyone that's listening or watching that there is a tremendous amount of support that is coming from other countries, and not just NATO countries. And believe me, Poland, as part of NATO, is really stepping up as well. They would say, I would say, probably bearing the brunt of this burden when it comes to assisting Ukraine. So they really are doing a tremendous job. There are many other partners in this effort, even outside of NATO. There is global support coming into Ukraine. So we have authorized a number of dollar packages which consist of lethal aid, which is military equipment and supplies, as well as humanitarian aid, medicines, food, that type of supply. And what we have seen, though, is that a lot of the military aid, it is not flowing in as quickly as we would like. So javelin, stingers, you name it, and other types of ammunition. I have authored a number of bills and provisions that would allow for the transfer of even old Soviet equipment that we have, that we as the United States own in the Central Command area as well as the European Command area. Not all of that has been transferred to the Ukrainians. We don't use it. They can. So simple things like that. It's stuff we've already purchased, so we should just go ahead and transfer that to them. But what we have seen, and I'm going to give an example that this bothers me so badly. Weeks ago, we approved $100 million of food aid to go to the Ukraine. That has not been dispersed yet. It has not been sent, because there are other issues in our code that involve shipping and the types of ships that we can actually send the aid on. And so because we're not able to meet those other shipping requirements, because we know the supply chain right now is really broken, the food aid, even though Americans see, oh, well, you've already given $100 million, it hasn't left the United States. It's still right here. And so in the next package, we have another $33 billion that is being allocated. There is $1 billion of food aid to be distributed, and the first $100 million hasn't even gone out the door yet. So the devil is in the details. I do think that there's more that we can do, but again, going back to making sure that the supply chain is repaired and we are actually getting what the Ukrainians actually need into their country. We have very few United States government workers actually on the ground in Ukraine. There are so many great non-governmental organizations through private donation that have stepped up. And an example would be Samaritan's Purse. They are delivering food and medicine into Ukraine without the assistance of our federal government. So my suggestion would be that we enable some of these non-governmental organizations and provide them with the grant dollars, of course with oversight. We have to have oversight. But they've already got this web of activity in Ukraine. We should be utilizing all of these different non-governmental organizations to distribute what is actually needed to the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian military.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Well, we're out of time, but is there anything else you'd like the viewers of Liberty and Justice with Matt Whitaker to know about Senator Ernst, or what's on your heart?
Well, I just want everyone to know and understand because it seems that we live in such a divisive political climate. You know how this is, Matt. I hear a lot from the left and about our nation, and a lot of folks like to talk bad about the United States of America. But I would just simply say that we live in the greatest country on the face of the planet. I know you believe that too. We have people, and that's why we have a crisis at the border, southern border, is because so many people are running to get into the United States. We don't see people running to get into Russia or China. We do have law and order in the United States, and that's what separates us from all of these other nations around the world with their authoritarian regimes, autocratic regimes. We provide opportunity for our citizens, and our country is a beautiful place to live and raise a family. So I'm glad that you are a partner with me on protecting this great nation and allowing us to visit freely and openly with our friends and constituents. Again, we are so blessed to be citizens of this great nation.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You are a true patriot, and I'm honored to know you and consider you a friend. There's so much more we could talk about. We just don't have the time. We'll have to do this again in the future. But reminder to all my viewers that you can watch Liberty and Justice every Friday night, 7 p.m. on CPAC Now. And then I redistribute that across a lot of different podcasts. And it's on Rumble. It's on my website, whitaker.tv. And if you can't find it, then you're not looking very hard. But anyway, Joni Ernst, U.S. Senator, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course. Thank you, Matt.